Excellent!
What's up guys, welcome to my monthly builds video for August 2016. Every month I create a couple computer build parts lists based on your votes and feedback from the previous month, and then I'm actually building one of them every month as well. So here's a look back through history at my saved parts lists from the past on PC Part Picker, of course. I have three, technically two, but kind of three builds for this month as well. And last month I asked what PC builds do you guys want to see in August, and you all voted it was very contentious. There was lots of close voting here, but 28% won with the $1,200 all-rounder. However, last month I built a $1,200 system that I felt actually fit perfectly into this category. So for that reason, I vetoed this one, and I went with the 26% option, cheapest VR-ready system plus headset. So we got both of those. If you guys want to vote for next month, the link is down in the description. What PC builds do you want to see in September? And your options are right there. That $1,200 build as well, if you guys want to check it out, links are also in the description. You can watch me actually assemble the dang thing. It turned out really, really nice. I was super happy with the final finished product. Super clean, and then I actually went through the trouble of testing it and benchmarking it too. So check out both of those videos because I think you will find they are just jam-packed with information, and they're super useful. Moving on to this month's builds though for August 2016. So here's the $1,300 VR build plus Oculus Rift. Now I wanted to do a full build because when I've done builds before and I've said this build is VR ready, and people said that's not VR ready because you don't include the VR headset, the head-mounted display, which is a significant amount of the cost, to be fair. So $600 is what you'll pay for an Oculus Rift, and that is the cheapest viable full VR ready capable headset meant to go with a gaming PC. So that is what I've included. Beyond that, you have essentially the rest of the price, which came in at just shy of $1,300. So you have about $700 worth of computer going along with that Oculus Rift headset, which is, I just sort of manually put that in there since PC Part Picker actually doesn't have it listed. Anyway, so for the CPU, which is probably going to be the most controversial choice, I went with an i5-6500. Now there are obviously other viable options for CPUs that are Oculus Rift ready, but I wanted a quad core, and I like Skylake because it's new and it's got the best instructions per clock performance and all that kind of stuff. Turbo will go up to 3.6 gigahertz. The 6400 is also a full quad core CPU from Intel that could also slot into this. It's about $20 cheaper, but it has a lower base clock, or a lower boost base and turbo frequency, so you're not going to be able to get quite as much performance out of it, especially if you're doing the BCLK overclocking. Okay, motherboard is this one right here. It's a Gigabyte H170M DS3H, only about $80. You can get it as cheap as $70 depending on where you look for it, and it's got pretty much like everything you would need for a motherboard. I went with micro ATX to keep the size down a little bit, so you do have a little bit of expansion. Of course, your slot for your graphics card right there. It's even got an M.2 built in there as well. For I/O, you've got your display outs, which you're probably not going to use because you'll be using your discrete GPU ones, and everything else you need. Some USB 3, all that good stuff. No USB Type-C on here. That's the only real downside. But you do have two USB 3.0 front panel ports, which you aren't gonna really be able to use with the case I chose, but who cares? Anyway, for a storage device, we went with a simple SSD. 240 gigs is enough for your operating system and some games. If you want more storage, find an old 1 terabyte hard drive or something and drop it in there as well. $60 for 240 gigs is kind of the going rate for a bargain on an SSD right now. And it's not the fastest SSD in the world. It's a team SSD, but if you look at a SATA SSD and the reads and writes are up there in the 500 megabytes per second range, and your IOPS are around 70 to 100,000, you're going to be getting most of the performance, and going beyond that, you're not going to get a whole lot. Memory choice here is from G.Skill. I actually had some team memory in here, but it disappeared as of this morning as I was trying to set this all up. But anyway, $34 for an 8 gig kit of memory, 2400 speed. Who cares if it matches? There's no side panel on the case. For the graphics card, I went with one that I was hoping you could actually find. This was in stock yesterday. It is not in stock anymore. Finding an RX 480 that's in stock is difficult. My apologies. And also, this is a reference design. If you're going to get a 480 and you're going to try to keep your eyes out and find one that's in stock, I would definitely recommend going with an aftermarket design rather than the reference design that I have listed here. Again, I was just trying to go for one that's in stock and also around the actual price. So $240 to $250 is kind of what you'd pay. The higher end, more expensive 480s kind of get you up into the GTX 1060 range, and then it becomes more of a question whether you're getting the most bang for your buck. But the RX 480 has proven itself to be very capable when it comes to VR performance, and it's got 8 gigs of memory, and it's a good GPU. I like it. Anyway, for our case, we have a Fractal Design Core 1100. It's a $30 case. It's micro ATX, and it's got a USB 3 front panel connector. What more do you want? I guess maybe HDMI on the front for a VR build could be kind of useful. I don't know. Other than that, though, it's this really kind of a no frills case from Fractal, but again, it kind of gets the job done. Micro ATX, got enough space in here for some storage drives. Your power supply, of course, goes up at the top. You know, it's a case, $30. For power supply, finally, I went with the EVGA 500. This is the 500B. It's 80 plus bronze. Again, a kind of no frills power supply, but it is 80 plus bronze rated, so a decent performance. It's not going to have super fancy looking all black cables or anything. You do have ketchup and mustard, but again, it's going to get the job done. And when we're looking for the cheapest system we can build that's VR ready, this is going to be a solid power supply for you. And look, if you count the rebates, you can get it for as cheap as like $28 right now. So that is a very good deal in my opinion. And this whole system comes in at just shy of $1,300, and that is including $600 of the price for the Oculus Rift, which that'll get you off the ground, up and running. And, $1,300 total for all that, including the headset, I think is a pretty good deal, especially when you consider, compare it to a Titan X, which costs $1,200 by itself. For the second build, I went kind of over the top. I wanted to do a two-way GTX 1080 build. I'm also kind of considering that I'm going to build one of these systems later in the month, and I wanted to do something that was feasible if possible. So this is actually kind of an Asus and Corsair build, and I leaned towards Asus and Corsair components, partially because Corsair might end up sponsoring the build if I do it later in the month, although that is still TBD, so we'll leave that to your... we'll figure that out later. Anyway, total price here is actually $3542.89 as of the filming of this, and you'll notice we have really high-end parts. So I figured this was going in like groups of 600. So $600 for the CPU, $600 for like the memory and the motherboard, $600 each for your graphics cards, $600 for storage, I guess, but that is 11 terabytes of storage. So what I did was I did this whole build with the Corsair and Asus parts, and then I redid it, which I'll come back to once I go over all these, and I shaved like $500 or $600 off the price. 6850K is a 6-core processor from Intel, Broadwell E. And if you want a really, really fast processor, you kind of have to go this route, although it is very expensive. So $606 is what these are selling for right now. You can get a 6-core Broadwell E CPU for less money than this by going with the 6800K. That is down around $400. However, that one has 40 PCIe. I'm sorry, that one has 28 PCIe lanes, whereas this one has 40 PCIe lanes. The choice is yours, whether you think that's valid or not. I actually went with the 5820K with the second version of this build, but 6850K gets you 6-core, 3.6 gigahertz turbo. It is unlocked for overclocking and all that good stuff. So a very, very powerful processor. Whether or not it's worth the price is, of course, up to your discretion. Want to keep that nice and cool, so we have the Corsair Hydro Series H100i V2, 240 millimeter CPU cooler. I also went with the black and white color scheme for this build. I don't think I mentioned that yet. This one has some little plates you can swap in to make the colors match and everything. And all in all, very, very nice cooler. They've done some upgrades from that for the compared to the V1 version. For the motherboard, I went the Asus X99 Deluxe 2. This is a really nice motherboard, and I actually just finished shooting a review on it. It comes with an insane amount of accessories, so even though you're looking at a pretty expensive motherboard, which costs over $400, $420 at Newegg right now, you get some pretty compelling add-on options like the Thunderbolt 3 card that they drop in there. You get the fan splitter option as well. You get an M.2 riser card, a bunch of other little random accessories and stuff in there too. So I thought it made a little bit more compelling deal. It's also got RGB LEDs that actually look pretty cool when they're lit up and stuff. I did a demo of that. That video should be up in just a couple days. Stay tuned for that. Anyway. Very nice motherboard. Might, again, be more expensive than what some people want to spend, but I think it'll look pretty cool. Corsair Vengeance LED series memory is what I chose for this one. 32 gig kit, 4x8 gig. This is 2666 speed. And I went with this again because I was kind of sticking with the Corsair and Asus theme. These are also new as of Computex this year, and they finally have actually launched. I chose the version with the white LEDs across the top, so the tops of these sticks have LEDs that look pretty stinking cool. And Corsair's even working on software to make them dance for you and everything. So yeah, that's why I went with those. Still more expensive than what you could get, but I'll come back to that. SSD, I have a 960 gig SATA 3 Neutron XTI. Corsair doesn't have a huge range of options when it comes to SSDs in the 2.5 inch range, but they do have some very solid options, and the Neutron series is very good when it comes to write consistency. This one's $350 though. I believe in the actual parts list it's less than that. Yeah, oh no, $350 at Newegg. Apparently that's the cheapest price you can get for that. But still, very fast SSD, 960 gigs, and again, there are better price to performance options that I'll come back to in just a sec. Toshiba 5 terabytes, 7200 RPM storage drive. These are 3.5 inch mechanical drives. I just wanted to throw in a bunch of storage since this is a high-end build. I was actually looking for a single 8 terabyte drive, and I decided to go with two 5 terabyte drives because the single 8 terabyte drives are around $300 price range. Two of these you can pair up in RAID if you want to, or give yourself some redundancy, and either speed or redundancy for RAID 0 or RAID 1, and you'll get 10 terabytes of storage, or 5 usable terabytes if you go for RAID 0. I'd go RAID 1, this option. Just give yourself some backup. Okay, for our graphics card, I have two GTX 1080s. Since it was an Asus motherboard, I just decided, well, let's stick with an Asus graphics card, and I went with the ROG Strix version. However, these are, again, really hard to find, just like the 480. So it's out of stock here. This is at least a reasonable price. If $600 really is the MSRP of the GTX 1080, then $630, I think, is a very reasonable price to pay for a upgraded version with the Asus Strix cooler on it and RGB LEDs and all that stuff. And again, this was something that was in stock yesterday, but for 1080s, you just really have to keep an eye out. If I actually do this build, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get a hold of two of these, but I will at least be able to do two standard Founders Edition 1080s for that. I know I can obtain, but who knows? Maybe I'll get the Asus Strix cards. I actually might be checking out an Asus Strix GTX 1070 fairly soon, so, but that still remains to be seen. Okay, moving on to the case. Corsair Carbide Series Air 540. I was considering the 780T as well. This one's a little bit cheaper, still full ATX. I think it's a nice little boxy system. You get a bit wider footprint with the box style design, but you can still, of course, fit everything in there, and of course it will fit our cooler, and since it's a Corsair case, we know it's got good build quality and all that good stuff. And I like how these looks, keeping the power supply on the opposite side and everything. I think it turns out really nice, especially with a couple graphics cards in there. For the power supply, we have a Corsair HXI series, 1000 watts, 80 plus platinum. So 1000 watts, I think, is a good, you could get away with it like 850 even or less with two 1080s, but 1000 watts I think is a good round number. 80 plus platinum is almost the highest level of efficiency you can get. $200 for this, although you can get a rebate right now. So you're going to be able to like connect this up with your other Corsair stuff and use Corsair monitoring with Corsair Link, which is kind of cool. But again, if you don't want to spend that much, you can get this build for a lot cheaper. But we are shaving some pieces off. Anyway, so just to compare these two builds, this is a 5820K, still with 1080 SLI. This comes in, this was at 2850 earlier today, and it's actually dropped even less, 2814. Again, that's compared to our original builds here with similar product, with similar specs. 3542.89 is what I'm currently seeing for that one. Now, what did we change here? First off, of course, most obviously is going to be the processor. We shaved $240 or so off the cost of the processor by going with an i7 5820K. So this is a last gen Haswell E processor. It's not quite as fast, but it still has 6 cores. It still has 28 PCIe lanes, so it's still going to be just fine for your two-way SLI support. You might have a little bit more limitation when it comes to extra connectivity on the motherboard with something like this, because if you got two-way SLI, it's using up probably 8x8 of PCIe lanes, and you have whatever's left over for your U.2 and your M.2 and other storage and USB 3.1 and that kind of thing. So you are shaving off some of your performance, but as long as you're not maxing out your I/O, you're still going to get most of the performance with the 5820K. Went with an air cooler for $40 rather than the liquid cooler for over $100. This is an Enermax ETST40. It's black, so it'll match and everything. Went with still an Asus motherboard, still very solid Asus motherboard, the X99A2 here instead of the Deluxe. This one, again, you know, it's got everything you need. It's not quite as high-end and it doesn't have quite all the bells and whistles as the Deluxe, but still it's going to get the job done, and anyone who gets it, I'm sure, will be totally happy. Wait, I lost my list. Went with the 880 Premier 960 gigs, so this is a full over 100 and this is like $140 cheaper for this 880 960 gig SSD compared to the Corsair. Wait, I skipped the memory. Here's the 880 Premier. Look, I don't even have a picture of it. Surely Newegg will have a picture of it. There. 880 Premier SP550 seems to be really hitting the price to the bang for your buck dollar amounts when it comes to SSDs. But yeah, just a lot cheaper. Not going to be quite as fast as the XTI, of course. For the memory, I just went with about a $30-ish cheaper kit from Crucial Ballistics. This is a very simple kit, but it's still going to match with the color scheme. And then finally, for the power supply, I went with an EVGA 1000 watt 80 plus gold instead of 80 plus platinum. And you still get, again, the same amount of wattage, a little bit less efficiency. Your power bill is going to be slightly more, but saves about $40 to $60. No, wait, $120. I guess that's including a mail-in rebate. So it saves 60, 70, 80 bucks, depending on whether or not you include that mail-in rebate. And those are all of my builds for the month of August. I hope you guys have enjoyed. If you did, hit the thumbs up button, leave me comments in the comments section, and let me know if you like this video or what you do differently, or your build that you picked out that's way better than the builds that I picked out. And I'm going to do one more straw poll down there where you guys can vote on which of these systems you think I should assemble later this month. It's going to be in a couple weeks because I'm going on a trip in a few days here, and I will be telling you more about that as I'm on the trip. But in the meantime, let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.